Alrighty, today we're reading out of As Bill Sees It about financial problems, beginning on page 75. Losing financial fears. When a job still looked like a mere means of getting money rather than an opportunity for service, when the acquisition of money for financial independence looked more important than a right dependence on God, we were the victims of unreasonable fears. And these were fears which would make a serene and useful existence at any financial level quite impossible. But as time passed, we found that with the help of AA's 12 steps, we could lose those fears, and no matter what our material prospects were, we could cheerfully perform humble labor without worrying about tomorrow. If our circumstances happened to be good, we no longer dreaded a change for the worse, for we had learned that these troubles could be turned into great values for ourselves and for others. All righty, Michael's going to read 8.4.
Okay, benefits of responsibility, page 84. Happily, AA's per capita expenses are very low. For us to fail to meet them would be to evade a responsibility beneficial for us. Most alcoholics have said they have had no trouble that money would not cure. We are a group that when drinking always held out a hand for funds, so when we commence to pay our own service bills, this is a healthy change. Because of drinking, my friend Henry had lost a high salary job. There remained a fine house with a budget 3 times his reduced earnings. He could have rented the house for enough to carry it, but no. Henry said he knew that God wanted him to live there, and he would see that the costs were paid. So Henry went on running up bills and glowing with faith. Not surprisingly, his creditors finally took over the place. Henry can laugh about it now, having learned that God often helps those who are willing to help themselves.
Okay. 112. Complete security. Upon entering AA, the spectacle of years of waste threw us into panic. Financial importance was no longer our principal aim. We now clamored for material security. Even when we were reestablished in our business, terrible fears often continued to haunt us. This made us misers and penny pinchers all over again. Complete financial security we must have, or else. We forgot that most alcoholics in AA have an earning power considerably above average. We forgot that the immense goodwill of our brother AAs, who were only too eager to help us to better jobs when we deserved them. We forgot the actual or potential financial insecurity of every human being in the world. And worst of all, we forgot God. In money matters, we had faith only in ourselves, and not too much of that. Okay. 128.
Ooh, it went too far. Just a second.
I'm sure you can find it.
Oh, I can. I was just talking to myself about it.
That's okay.
Page 128. Back to work. It is possible for us to use the alleged dishonesty of other people as a plausible excuse for not meeting our own obligations. Once, some prejudiced friends exhorted me never to go back to Wall Street. They were sure that the rampant materialism and double dealing down there would stunt my spiritual growth. Because this sounded so high-minded, I continued to stay away from the only business that I knew. When finally my household went broke, I realized I hadn't been able to face the prospect of going back to work. So I returned to Wall Street, and I've and I have ever since been glad that I did. I needed to rediscover that there are many fine people in New York's financial district. Then, too, I needed the experience of staying sober in the very surroundings where alcohol had cut me down. A Wall Street business trip to Akron, Ohio, first brought me face to face with Dr. Bob. So the birth of AA hinged on my effort to meet my bread and butter responsibilities.
All righty. 177.
Oh, 77.
Money before and after. In our drinking time, we acted as if the money supply were inexhaustible. Though between binges, we'd sometimes go to the other extreme and become miserly. Without realizing it, we were just accumulating funds for the next spree. Money was the symbol of pleasure and self-importance. As our drinking became worse, money was only an urgent requirement which could supply us with the next drink and the temporary comfort of oblivion that it brought. Although financial recovery is on the way for many of us, we find we cannot place money first. For us, material well-being always follows spiritual progress. It never precedes. Ooh. Alrighty. 205.
205.
Virtue and self-deception.
Okay, virtue and self-deception, page 205. I used to take comfort from an exaggerated belief in my own honesty. My New England kinfolk had taught me the sanctity of all business commitments and contracts, saying, "A man's word is his bond." After this rigorous conditioning, business honesty always came easy. I never flim-flammed anyone. However, this small fragment of reality, one virtue, did not produce some interesting liability. Virtue did produce some interesting liabilities. I never failed to whip up a fine contempt for those of my fellow Wall Streeters who were prone to shortchange their customers. This was arrogant enough, but the ensuing self-deception proved even worse. My prized business honesty was presently converted into a comfortable cloak under which I could hide the many serious flaws that other departments of my life. Being certain of this one virtue, it was easy to conclude that I had them all. For years on end, this prevented me from taking a good look at myself.
Alrighty. 239. When and how to give. Men who cry for money and shelter as a condition of their sobriety are on the wrong track. Yet, we sometimes do provide a new prospect with these very things when it becomes clear that he is willing to place his recovery first. It is not whether we shall give that is the question, but when and how to give. Whenever we put our work on a material plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon alms rather than upon a higher power and the AA group. He continues to insist he cannot master alcohol until his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth, that job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking as long as we place material dependence upon other people ahead of our dependence on God. 259.
259. Servant, not master, page 259. In AA, we found that it did not matter too much what our material condition was, but it mattered greatly what our spiritual condition was. As we improved our spiritual outlook, money gradually became our servant and not our master. It became a means of exchanging love and service with those about us. One of AA's loners is an Australian sheepman who lives 2,000 miles from the nearest town, where yearly he sells his wool. In order to be paid the best prices, he has to get to town during a certain month. When he heard that a big regional AA meeting was to be held at a later date when wool prices would have fallen, he gladly took a heavy financial loss in order to make his journey then. That's how much an AA meeting means to him.
Very good. 287. Aspects of spirituality. Among AAs, there's still a vast amount of mix-up respecting what is material and what is spiritual. I prefer to believe that it is all a matter of motive. If we use our worldly possessions too selfishly, then we are materialists. But if we share these possessions in helpfulness to others, then the material aids the spiritual. The idea keeps persisting that the instincts are primarily bad and there are the roadblocks before which all spirituality falters. I believe that the difference between good and evil is not the difference between spiritual and instinctual man. It is the difference between proper and improper use of the instructional. Is that word? Instructional?
Instinctual.
Instinctual. I've lost my mind. Recognition and right channeling of the instinctual are the essence of achieving wholeness. All righty. 290.
290. All right, page 290, time versus money, page 290. Our attitude toward the giving of time, when compared with our attitude toward giving money, presents an interesting contrast. We give a lot of our time to AA activities for our own protection and growth, but also for the sake of our groups, our areas, AA as a whole, and above all, the newcomer. Translated into terms of money, these collective sacrifices would add up to a huge sum. But when it comes to the actual spending of cash, particularly for AA service overhead, many of us are apt to turn a bit reluctant. We think of the loss of all that earning power in our drinking years, of those sums we might have laid by for emergencies or for education of the kids. Recent years, this attitude is everywhere on the decline. It quickly disappears when the real need for a given AA service becomes clear. Donors can seldom see what the exact result has been. They will know, however, that countless thousands of other alcoholics and their families are being helped.
Okay. 301. To rebuild security. In our behavior respecting financial and emotional security, fear, greed, possessiveness, and pride have too often done their worst. Surveying his business or employment record, almost any alcoholic can ask questions like these. In addition to my drinking problems, what character defects contributed to my financial instability? Did fear and inferiority about my fitness for the job destroy my confidence and fill me with conflict? Or did I overvalue myself and play the big shot? Businesswomen in AA will find that these questions often apply to them too. And the alcoholic housewife can also make the family financially insecure. Indeed, all alcoholics need to cross-examine themselves ruthlessly to determine how their own personality defects have demolished their security. And then our final reading is 324.
324. Okay. Spirituality and money, page 324. Some of us still ask, just what is this third legacy business anyhow? And just how much territory does service take in? Let us begin with my own sponsor, Ebby. When Ebby heard how serious my drinking was, he resolved to visit me. He was in New York. I was in Brooklyn. His resolve was not enough. He had to take action. He had to spend money. He called me on the phone and then got into the subway. Total cost 10 cents. At the level of the spirit telephone booth and spiritual turnstile, spirituality and money began to mix. One without the other would have amounted to nothing at all. Right then and there, Ebby established the principle that AA in action calls for the sacrifice of much time and a little money. Well, that was pretty good, Rick.